Lake Erie, the fourth largest Great Lake and one of the most commonly used trade routes in North America, was claimed by the British, who were aware of the benefits of having Lake Erie in their control. The Americans lacked the necessities to counter the several battleships set up in the lake. Their only ship that was set up there was taken by the British. However, that did not stop America to end British control of Lake Erie. The Secretary of the Navy commissioned a fleet of ships to be made and ordered Oliver Hazard Perry to command them to take back the lake. Perry had just swooped into battle. He had already set up his ships and prevented everyone from getting in and out of the island they were stationed on. The general, Robert Herriot Barclay, knew that he and his men would exhaust all their resources and had to take action fast. So, he approached Putin Bay with his fleet, having the wind on his side. Knowing the battle was imminent, Perry's fleet was ready, outnumbering Barclay and a set of ships with 9-6. He waited until the wind would be on his side. When it did, Scorpion and the Detroit started the shoot-off. Perry's ships fought better at close range because the British used cannons that could shoot over long distances, while Perry's used guns that had more power at a closer range. With this knowledge, Perry ordered his ships to advance further in the battle. One of the American ships became heavily damaged with 2/3 of the crew dead or injured, which made Perry decide to straight up abandon the ship and row back to another ship. Not long after, Perry continued to use his close combat strategy. With the full force of the Americans against them, the British attempted to turn the ships around and retreat. They failed, however, and the British lieutenants and most of the commanders had been taken out with the remaining ships disabled. With Barclay injured severely, the British had no choice but to surrender, ending the battle officially at 3 p.m.
The Battle of Lake Erie will now forever be an important battle in Canada's history. Though not one of the most memorable battles, it was a huge achievement for the Americans because they haven't won many of the battles that have been fought at that time. It was a turning point that made winning seem actually possible, even though the war ended in a draw. And if you ask me, I think... Hello? What's that? I haven't answered any of the questions that I need to answer. Oh, The most important question I'm sure that you'll ask is, who won the battle? Well, as I previously said, the Americans did. They forced the British and the indigenous people who were supporting them to retreat. They surely repaired their ships, and there wasn't much negative aftermath dealt to the Americans other than injuries. However, the British weren't doing so well. 41 of their men were killed, which was nearly double the amount the Americans had been. Although less British men were wounded than American, 306 soldiers were captured, along with the entire squadron. Moving on to the next question. Who were the generals? The generals, Oliver Hazard Perry and Robert Herriot Barclay, led both of their respective sides of the battle. Oliver had been known for fighting alongside the West Indies in the Quasi War. He also served the Mediterranean in the Barbary Wars and in the Caribbean fighting piracy and the slave trade. So, with these acknowledgements, he was chosen to command the American ships in the Battle of Lake Erie. Robert Herriot Barclay was promoted to lieutenant at the young age of 18, 7 years after he entered the Navy at 11. Yes, we had children serving in the navies in the 1800s. He continued to serve as a lieutenant and was chosen to go and take control of Lake Erie. He successfully secured a blockade against the Americans that were led by Perry, though about a month later, the lack of resources forced him to lift the blockade, where Perry then invaded the lake, preventing the British to transport supplies to Amherstburg. Having enough, he initiated a battle with Perry and his men. Honestly, I could go on and on about asking these questions, but this video would be way too long and most of them could be answered easily since I summarized the entire battle previously. So instead of wasting my time, let's go over some trivia. Why did the battle happen? The battle started because the British weren't able to transport goods in Lake Erie, since they were blockaded by Perry and his men. Because of this problem, Barclay initiated a battle. Why did the Americans win? It's said that the Americans won because of Perry's leadership skills and numbers in men and ships. Where did the Battle of Lake Erie take place? The battle took place at Putin Bay on South Bay's Island. What were the benefits of having control of Lake Erie? Lake Erie was a commonly used trade route in North America, and the fur trade was still a big industry during that time. When did the battle start and end? The battle started on September 10th, 1813 at 11:45 a.m. and ended somewhere around 3 p.m. How did the battle impact the First Nations? The First Nations and Métis communities sided with the British because they both wanted to stop American expansion. So, since the British lost the battle, it was a loss to the First Nations as well. What is Lake Erie now? Lake Erie continues to be a lake, obviously, although now instead of being used as a trade route, it's now one of the largest freshwater fisheries in the world. This video is admittedly not my best work as it's quite rushed and the syncing could be better, but I think I'm proud that I was able to actually finish this project for the first time, as I haven't been able to finish my previous video projects. I don't really have a good way to end this video in a way that isn't awkward or cringe or unprofessional, so I think I'll just end it here. Testing. Testing.